Hello, everyone. Early good morning to Nahid. Good morning to others. Good afternoon to everyone else. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's an honor to each time host this gathering. My name is Ajay Pinjani, and I'm joined by Kiara from the Global Schools Forum. I'm sure others will be trickling in, and many others listen and read very keenly to our takeaways, as Jane was mentioning earlier. Jane is attending for the first time, but she said she's read the takeaways earlier, and many others do and listen to the recordings as well. So while we may be few here, we are many apart and together in spirit as well. So thank you very much for joining us to the community of practice of climate resilient and climate conscious education. Uh, these words are something which we tried to frame it again and again and had to think about the two pillars and one of resilience and one of consciousness. And I think Kiara was the one who was thinking about consciousness as a word as well, because we were exploring what does it mean, what are we seeking together and collectively. And I think consciousness came in as a word because we often are in a autopilot mode of when things come to us, we try to resist, react, respond, and that's where the resilience comes in, and that is really important. But how do you bring that whole self where we can think about climate education not in isolation but in collective, and consciously respond to it, consciously listen to it, and consciously and collectively have that power together, which we awesomely and beautifully have. So thank you for connecting with us for the past four sessions. Really happy to dive into a global perspective this time as well. We've heard from amazing practitioners from peace to link education to climate class and connection, so on and so forth. It's been amazing. But now we are also growing simultaneously. It's a happy moment to share that GSF, when we started this COP, was around 180 members. Now it has grown to 200 members since yesterday across 71 countries. Um, of course, this growth in numbers, it does not mean much in that sense. It's just a celebration that we are able to connect with more organizations, we're able to connect with more classrooms, more teachers. So your voice is reaching them, their voice is reaching you, and hopefully we can create those bridges which are being broken around the world. If we can create some more bridges together, that's something we are hoping to do through our four pillars: building strong on our community, creating spaces where knowledge can grow, more funding is possible through partnerships, and more collaboration is possible through partnerships as well. So that is our hope. You can read much more on the GSF website. We are joining the school a week from now. We had joined CIES with 6 sessions or so. So a lot of takeaways will come by as well. So we're also part of several global gatherings. If you're attending and if you're there, please let us know. We'll be happy to connect with you and connect you with others as well. Today, I look forward to start with a bit of a check-in for all of us, introduce Melissa and Marina, thank them for joining us today, and then maybe reflect on how climate education is a priority in our own context, reflect on the global perspective, what we are hearing from Marina and Melissa and UNESCO's work, and reflect back into our own context and communities. What does it make? We'll have a lot of time for question and answers as well. And it's a good group. We can have a good dialogue together as well. As always, we encourage and appreciate undivided attention. Uh, we are grateful for your presence and always have seen that a dialogue opens and creates a lot of magic together. We have recently published a blog as well, which is available on our website. And once I've introduced and done the check in, I'll put the link as well. You're happy to go and read about what we've learned from the previous sessions so far. And we'll be writing another one as well on how can we position the unique value of this community of practice. And this blog was more about learnings, but we would love to now write another positioning blog on uh, what do we want, what are we saying to funders in a way, what are we listening from practitioners which can reach to funders, to government practitioners. So if there are any ideas or more stories like Noman had shared his very courageously if there are more stories you would want, from your own context to be highlighted as well, I think stories have a lot of power. So please do reach out and share those stories with us. We're also reaching out to you guys also simultaneously, from those who've previously attended sessions and for one-on-one calls as well. So thank you. Before introducing the speakers for today, wanted to think about this one question together. I'll pause the screen as well. I'll just go back to all of us. If you can think back to when you were a student, and just take a minute, close your eyes if you have to. Just think back when you were a student, and you can pick grade 9 to grade 5 to whatever. And what is that one thing you or your school did to take care for the environment at that time, which you still remember, which you cherish? Whenever you're ready, please unmute yourself and share.
Hi, AJ. I would say my school years were a long time ago, but I would say it was putting trash in trash cans, just picking up and keeping the school grounds clean. Not necessarily environmentally in a big way, but very, very locally.
Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing, Nahid.
I can share a little bit. Nothing like immediately came to mind. And actually, I think a lot of what we've learned at school about like global changes to kind of climate or biodiversity, it felt very distant from like our world. It was like something happening out there. Um, it didn't feel very connected to like day-to-day reality. Um, but I think one moment that really stands out to me, I think was in primary school. We were like hosting a school fair or something like this, and we were dividing responsibilities between all the children, and no one wanted to be in charge of the rubbish and the sort of like cleaning the classroom. And then the teacher just did the most inspiring speech. I still remember it to this day, and she was saying like, recy like don't worry about all these social attitudes towards like rubbish and recycling. It's like really not important. This is one of the key challenges that we need to solve for the world. Like, what do we do with the waste? How do we even look at our waste? Can waste become new resources in the future? It really blew my mind because it was going so contrary to how we were perceiving this problem. And then everyone was like, okay, I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to be like the future leader that, solves these big challenges for the world. And it was such a teaching moment. It wasn't part of the curriculum. It wasn't part of the structured pedagogy. It was just something that she kind of like completely changed our perspectives on. Yeah, it was a math teacher as well. It wasn't really in her responsibility, but it was just a sort of a really powerful moment.
Thank you, Kiara.
Yeah, I would say mine is a bit similar to Kiara's as well. Like growing up in London, my school always felt slightly separated from, climate issues. And you had, of course, like big recycling drives. There was a small garden that we had that we would like plant different vegetables to then, use in food and everything like that. But I think overall, the most impactful kind of lessons that I was taught was through subjects like geography, looking far more at like relationships between countries and of course like consumption patterns in the global north, and then how that was completely reliant on exploitation of natural resources and in the global majority as well. So like I feel like those moments were far more impactful rather than like something specifically tied to green or climate education. It was really just understanding rather than the individual kind of burden of climate change or like understanding how the individual impacts it. It was far more looking at how, global trade relations and those types of things uh, kind of built the world around us and everything. So I think, yeah.
Thank you, Alessandro. We can hear one more voice if
Should I?
yes, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and have a good day to everyone. So, I will share my story about my school in our district when I was a child. Environmental care and environmental action in my school was very limited to just session per year regarding the plantation drive or cleaning your classrooms. I think there was no real understanding of why these action matters and how these are connected to larger environmental changes and impact. So, what stayed with me is that these efforts were not integrated into the learning or behavior change, because behavior change is important and you have worked so many times, so many years for this. And that gap is actually what shaped my current work. That where we focus on making climate education practical, locally relevant, and contextualized. That should be driven by those who are already impacted by climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for accepting the invitation to go back a bit in your minds and hearts. Yeah, I think just it's so much about these isolated things which are not isolated at all, and we think it's isolated, but I think nature today tells us much more again and again. Uh, Great. So without further ado, would like to introduce Melissa and Marina. Melissa, thank you very much for accepting the invitation, and Marina, yourself as well. Both work as education specialists and education planning specialist at UNESCO. They've had amazing kind of a career journey, and please do share your journey as well at part of it. Sometimes we talk only about the work, but there could be those reflections from, I know from Cote d'Ivoire to Lebanon, and then working in Paris as well for you, Marina, and for Melissa has worked with BRAC as well, with Save the Children as well. So understanding the child protection angle from the climate education, both are really passionate about the work they do, and have scaled it and have partnered with so many organizations across so many countries. So very, very keen to hear from you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for allowing us to participate in your community of practice. We're really excited to be here. Thank you for the introduction as well. It's really nice for me to rejoin GSF. As AJ mentioned previously, when I was with BRAC, I was a part of the community of practice on foundational learning, if I can remember correctly. And at the time, community of practice on climate education did not yet exist. So it's really great to see how the communities are evolving and responding to the emerging needs and priorities in the education sector. So much appreciated and much gratitude to you all for letting us join and present. I don't know if Marina, you want to say a few words before we launch into the PowerPoint?
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Yes, for the invitation. As you said, I'm very happy to be here. It's the first time, but I think it's always important to share our best practices and to also hear from the practitioners. So it's very nice to join the conversation today, and I hope will be informative enough.
Great. So if you allow me, I will share my screen. We hope to make this more of a dialogue than a presentation. So you'll see throughout the slide deck, we will pause for some sessions to reflect. We have some questions that we'd like to pose. So hopefully that will break up the rhythm a bit. And we thought it would be useful to just start with a very brief overview of what it is that we do at UNESCO, and what do we mean by these concepts of education for sustainable development and greening education. And then hopefully we'll be able to get a bit more concrete and share some practical examples and case studies to try to bring the theoretical framework to life. Can I just confirm that you can see the PowerPoint presentation okay in full screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Thanks. Okay, we'll jump right in. So Marina and I both work for a team within UNESCO headquarters in Paris called Education for Sustainable Development, or ESD for short. And this is essentially a strategy to transform education to try to accelerate progress across all of the SDGs. So obviously we work primarily towards SDG 4, but because of the interconnected nature of all of the SDGs, education is really a driver across the entire sustainable development agenda. And within this global landscape of worsening climate change, of democratic backsliding, of persistent inequalities, education can really be used as a tool to address and to prevent these global challenges in the future. So you see that ESD is broader than just climate and just environment. And really at its core, it's about equipping learners of all ages with the knowledge, the values, and the skills to make responsible decisions and actions for environmental integrity, for economic viability, and for a just society for present and future generations. So ESD is not only focused on the environmental dimensions of sustainable development, but also the economic and societal ones. And we try to position and frame ESD within the global agenda on education quality. So it's really about transforming the learning content and outcomes, as well as the pedagogical approaches that teachers employ, and the learning environment itself. So we want an education system that is more relevant and responsive to the interconnected global challenges. So that's why it's really focusing more on the quality of learning. And lastly, I would just say that ESD adopts a lifelong approach. So we're not just focused on primary and secondary, but really from the early years all the way through to adult education. And it's holistic in the sense that it addresses the cognitive, the socio-emotional, and the behavioral learning dimensions. So that's why we talk about the knowledge, the values, and the skills. And in terms of what UNESCO does to further this agenda on ESD, we really organize our work around these three main pillars. So the first is leading and coordinating the global agenda. We try to influence global processes that are related to the role of education as the solution to these major sustainability challenges. And we also try to build and consolidate partnerships with key stakeholders, not just in education, but across sustainable development sectors. So we try to bridge and connect education stakeholders with also climate and environmental actors. Secondly, we aim to provide guidance, standards, and technical support, and that's especially at the country level to try and develop institutional capacity. And thirdly, M&E, really to help support evidence-informed policy, advocacy, and practice. So we have a few different tools and indicators that we try to track at the global level. And Marina might have more to say on that in a moment. And lastly, just to talk a bit about our own community of practice, which we call ESDNet. So in terms of global mandates, UNESCO is the lead UN agency for ESD and is therefore responsible for implementing this global framework called ESD for 2030 and its accompanying roadmap to which countries committed in Berlin in 2021 during the last ESD World Conference. And the objective of this framework, ESD for 2030, is to fully integrate ESD into government policies, into learning environments, into capacity building of educators, as well as empowerment and mobilization of youth and actors at the local level. So you see on the left-hand side there, those are the members of our community of practice who are more at the country level. So that includes ministries and government agencies. It's usually the ministries of education. That includes civil society organizations, as well as academic institutions. And then on the right, those are some of the global actors and networks who form the community of practice. Currently, we have around 1,000 active members of ESDNet and around 110 countries, so that's government or member states, who are involved in developing country initiatives on ESD. And country initiative is really like their strategic plan or vision for all the activities, initiatives, policies, programs that country aims to implement to further ESD. We thought this might be a good moment to pause before we go into the next session and pose the question, to what extent is climate change integrated in teaching and learning within your context? So that could be at the local level, at the school level, or even nationally if you're working at the country level. I can't see any of you, sorry, so please feel free to just unmute and share.
If I may step in to kick off the conversation about teaching and learning, I think what we see a lot with Melissa and the team in our activities and different projects when it comes to climate change education and teaching and learning, it's quite often, for example, integrated into science subjects or biology, and most of the times, or mainly at the cognitive level, giving definitions for examples. But we see some challenges when it's about other type of subjects. It's not so much transdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary, or sometimes not so much action-oriented. So these are some of the learnings or gaps that we have identified, for example. And we were wondering about the state of things, I would say, in your own context. Is it the same or not? It depends on countries, regions, and yeah, and so on.
Thanks, Marina.
Yeah, I think our conversations also earlier, but would love for others to step in. It's just that it's often restricted to geography or as a theoretical concept of climate change rather than, I think there's this tremendous disassociation with your own neighborhood. So while, for example, in Pakistan, floods have stricken so much, but would they be taught differently in the schools? That wouldn't happen. We would be hit by it. There would be mass migration because of it. The results and the fiasco would be very imminent. But would any part of the curriculum change? Is there an agency to change that curriculum as well while things go on? I think that is very, very limited to only the subject of geography, and that comes down to a very limited. That's my experience of working with different schools. But yeah, keen to hear how is it for others.
Maybe you can put some thoughts in the chat throughout the discussion as well.
I see a hand raised. Alessandro?
Yes, sorry, thank you. My internet keeps cutting out, so apologies if I get interrupted. At Peas, we work primarily in Uganda, Zambia, and Ghana, operating our own school network, but also partnering with government schools. And I think in our Uganda and Zambia context, I spoke about it a little bit in the last session when we were presenting, but we're kind of supported by two national curriculums that does kind of use climate change as a cross-cutting theme across different subjects. So you'll find in agriculture and geography. And then also one thing that we've kind of put stress on is building out the kind of critical thinking skills of our students through various different in various different ways, like life skills clubs. We've got girls only clubs, that type of thing, where students have the space to sort of discuss any sort of issues, but it can also be linked towards climate change issues. And that kind of builds up their ability to have confidence when they're speaking, to advocate for themselves, that I think will be quite powerful then when they grow up and they have to kind of advocate on behalf of their countries and their regions. So I think, yeah, in our way, it's integrated across many different facets where you're studying direct impacts of climate change, and then also you're building out, the students' competencies and abilities to then be able to address these issues later on. So yeah.
That's an excellent example. Thank you so much. And definitely relates back to what Marina was saying about oftentimes we see this integration happening maybe within the curriculum and more at the cognitive level. So the knowledge that we try to convey on climate change and sustainability, but really that needs to be reinforced with some of these other initiatives, like you mentioned, the extracurriculars, the more action-oriented learning that happens sometimes outside of the classroom, even where we can build these other competencies, the values, the skills, socio-emotional learning as well. So thanks for that excellent example. I think someone else's hand is up. I'm sorry, I can't see your name.
It's
Please
okay.
come up.
Jane and then Kiara.
Jane.
Great.
It's Jane.
Please come in, Jane.
I'm sorry, but my camera is not functioning well, so it's showing black and white, and yeah.
We can hear you well, though.
Okay. Concerning this question, in my country, climate change is partially integrated into teaching and learning in my context. And it is mainly covered in subjects like geography and science, where learners study topics such as global warming, weather patterns, and environmental conservation. However, it is often treated as just one topic rather than being deeply connected across all the subjects. There are some efforts to include climate change through activities like discussions, projects, and awareness campaigns, especially in geography. The girls, they do projects for their final exam. Yeah, for example, they also participate in tree planting. So we have a day, every day we do participate in tree planting. We do plant trees, but at our school, we have limited space. So we've planted quite all right, but we wish we had enough space to plant more trees. Yeah, we also carry out debates on climate change, and I ran a club called Conservation Club. So last year we planted some trees, and then this year we will have on 5th June, we'll have a day just fully dedicated for conservation, where we're going to invite other schools to come and participate in debate, and also we have projects, recycling projects that the students are doing to showcase on that day. So That's what we're doing.
That's great. Thank you for those really rich examples, again, of learning that can happen outside of the classroom through some of these extracurricular clubs, and for pointing out one of those challenges that sometimes is observed, especially in urban settings, which is a lack of access to nature, to outdoor space, and that can certainly inhibit some of these more environmentally focused activities. Thank you for your observations. Was there somebody else who wanted to share?
Yeah.
Yes, and we also had an excellent contribution from Numan in the chat, giving the context from Pakistan, which I think echoes some of what you were saying, Marina, around sort of fragmentation and largely theoretical approach to sharing this kind of knowledge. I think similar to what Jane was saying. I guess I just wanted to add maybe a bit of context of I guess the people who are on these calls in the community of practice are the ones who are the most interested in this topic and are sort of really, they get in, they try to complement the national curriculums with like these amazing initiatives that we've had. A lot of the organizations on the call today, present what they're doing in their own context. So there are some fantastic initiatives happening around the world. But for me, it's a sort of the question is it proportional to the scale of the challenge? And what would it take for these responses to actually become integrated and embedded in just mainstream education systems, so that our response and sort of integrating this climate change into teaching and learning reaches all the students and in a way that connects exactly not just with the cognitive aspect, but with the like skills and also emotional response in terms of values shaping. So yeah, I think we can quote a lot of amazing examples, but it still feels like a bit of a maybe not a drop in the ocean, but maybe like a cup in the ocean.
Yeah, thanks for that great reflection. Indeed, I think one of UNESCO's aims when it comes to the programs and initiatives that we support at the country level is to really work with ministries of education to integrate, to push for change at scale. So like you said, there are incredible examples at the local level, but ultimately to have the greatest impact and to ensure coherence across the system, we try to work at the national level through capacity building and technical support to integrate climate into the national curricula, into teacher training curricula, teacher training programs and resources, to try to influence pedagogies as well at the national level. But we were reflecting with AJ before this meeting on the role that the non-state education sector can also play in influencing that process, sometimes in sharing and exchanging resources, lesson plans, your own curricula that you've developed, where this integration has already taken place, so that we're not starting from scratch, but really we can exchange and share learnings with the national ministries of education to try to incorporate more systematically at the national level. And in our experience, that kind of exchange typically happens through the local education groups, so the coordination meetings that are usually chaired by the ministries of education, where other actors in the sector are invited to exchange and to influence their sector planning processes. But perhaps in your country, there are other platforms that exist for that exchange. I can't see any of you, so I don't know if we want to move on or not. Is it okay if we...
Jane had a raise of hands, but then dropped. Jane, do you want to come in?
Okay.
Or do you want to? Maybe it was an earlier raise of hand. It's okay, Melissa. You can continue.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you for that moment of pause and reflection. It was really stimulating. I will now hand over to Marina to give us some more background on what UNESCO means by greening education, and then some specific examples from a few countries. Over to you, Marina.
Thank you, Melissa. So as Melissa was mentioning earlier in explaining what is ESD, so it's not only about climate change, but we still have an initiative or a project specifically somehow dedicated to climate change education. We call it the Greening Education Partnership. I don't know if the screen is full now. We see this, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry, no, it's from my end. All good, all good. So this Greening Education Partnership was launched in New York at the UN Transforming Education Summit in September 2022. So it's more than 3 years now. It was one of the 6 global education initiative, and climate change was identified as one of the mounting urgency in the challenges that the education sector is facing. So this is also some sort of, I would say, community of practice as well. It's, as you can see on the screen now, 98 member states, countries, but we also have more than 2,000 stakeholders part of this initiative. And the members gather to discuss key topics, share best practices. It's really like a platform for creating synergies and best practices around the 4 pillars of actions that you also see on the screen. So the 4 main areas of action in the Greening Education Partnership is first greening schools, then greening curriculum, greening teacher training and education systems capacities, and finally greening communities. So we have technical groups composed of key co-coordinators or co-chairs for each of those technical working groups to advance the topics around the 4 key action areas. And we also have more partners and stakeholders, part of an advisory group to guide us on the strategy for this initiative. And you can see some of them also, some of the logos of some UN agencies, part of the advisory group. And why is UNESCO speaking on behalf of the Greening Education Partnership is because the Secretariat is hosted at UNESCO. So what did the Greening Education Partnership do since its launch? We have, I mean, the partnership has, yes, this slide. The partnership has published guidance documents, which aim to help both creating a common global standard for each of those action areas, and also to support the monitoring of progress as part of the global goal to prepare 4 guidance documents by the end of this year, actually. So you can see again on the screen the 4 guidance documents. The Green School Quality Standard and the Greening Curriculum Guidance are the first 2 which have been released, with the goal that by 2030, respectively, 50% of schools will be aligning to this green standard, and 90% of curriculum will also include climate change. The pillar number 3 tackles greening teacher training and education systems capacities. And the working group is now developing a teacher capacity policy tool for climate change and education. And it should be published anytime soon, actually next week. And lastly, pillar number 4 focuses on greening communities. And the publication was released at the end of last year. So it's a greening communities guidance with the objective to foster lifelong learning and for all educational settings to integrate climate change as well. So we really hope to leverage the power and reach of the Greening Education Partnership to ensure that these guidance documents reach a wide range of education stakeholders, such as you on the call today. So all of those documents and guidance documents are available on UNESCO's website, and we really encourage everyone to use them as much as possible. And today we wanted to do a bit of a deep dive on the first publication, the Green School Quality Standard, which target is not only the schools, but I think it relates more to the conversation today. So the Green School Quality Standard aims to help schools walk the talk, let's say. It's designed based on the whole institution approach to cover all aspects of school life in a holistic way, and you can see that through the 4 dimensions that are addressed in this standard. So it covers school governance, teaching and learning, facilities and operations, and community engagement. And it's mainly how can I say that, like a list of actions and guidance for schools to integrate specific activities under each of these dimensions to make sure that greening is not only about what we just mentioned before, is not only about learning outdoors or in geography subjects, but it's also about a vision in the governance of the school. So it's also at the level of the directors and principals of the schools, for example. It's also about the campus management and maybe the procurement of the school, the procurement processes of the school to make them a bit more sustainable. Of course, integrated into the teaching and learning. And lastly, make sure that the school connects with its community. We talked about urban areas where it's not always easy to go beyond the school itself. So this is why this is what this guidance document is for. And I want to finish this slide with one specific information for you all, because I think you are the target for this Green School Quality Standard, is that at the JEP Secretariat, we don't work directly with schools, but we work with, I would say, third-party entities. So with networks of schools, it can be foundations, international NGOs, or any learning institution, type of institution. And we also work with governmental entities, so many ministries of education, for them to embed all of those aspects that I have just described into the programs and activities with the schools, or to create a program of activity that integrate these aspects. And then we formally align them to the Green School Quality Standard. And once this is done, we can consider that the schemes are aligned, and all of the schools working within that network or with this Ministry of Education are considered green by UNESCO and the Greening Education Partnership, and are working towards this global goal for 2030. We will leave our contact information if any of you want to continue the conversation on how to align to this Green School Quality Standard and how to basically make your schools green. And here we would like to also pause again, because it's a lot of talking from our end and explanations. If you could as well share any best practices under each of the dimensions of the Green School Quality Standard. We've heard already some of them earlier, but if you have any examples from your experience on implementing, yes, activities maybe under any of these dimensions.
Thank you, Marina. I think it's also very reflective to think about that if any of you have even questions about how your own countries are approaching to it, and what does it mean for a school to be green in that sense? What does it mean to really apply this policy at a school level or at a district level? So any questions can be really helpful, or a dialogue around it also.
I've just minimized the PowerPoint so we can see each other. It's easier to dialogue.
Yes, George.
We
George,
can't hear you,
we cannot
George.
hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was on transit. Sorry I missed a greater part of the program itself. Well, for our own context, if I consider policy, curriculum, and practice, for Sierra Leone, actually, at this moment, for us, the effect of climate change has actually forced us to go into action. It has really not been something that has been integrated directly. But the effect of climate change is felt right across the nation. And so at the moment, we are strongest at policy level. Maybe what I'm learning here, definitely that's something that will have to inform how can that really be integrated into our curriculum, which is another level, and then the other level is practice in the schools. So I'm really here as a learning process. Honestly speaking, that this is not something that is a bit structured in our curriculum system, because normally when these things come, teachers are overburdened with even the subject that they do teach. Although we have a subject called social studies, where some of these environmental things are done, but given the standard you guys are really talking about, which need to be formally structured and integrated to the curriculum, I think that we are on the learning process really to see how we can learn and see how we can use that to inform should we participate in the framework design that could be used in our school system. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, it's a very good point indeed. We see many times that ESD or climate change is addressed in curriculum frameworks, for example, but when it comes to actual implementation, as you mentioned, like integrating it into the activities, into the lesson plans, into the textbooks examples, it's yeah, there's a gap indeed. And I think you will be happy to consult the greening curriculum guidance, and we can always share in the chat the link towards the document, because it really gives a set of key concepts that can be addressed. Of course, the best would be that at the national level, when a country is going through a curriculum reform, for example, it is integrated into the subject curriculum, for example. But I really believe that this guidance can also be used at the school level by the practitioners themselves, because it gives key subjects, sub-subjects, and ideas under um, key concepts with learning outcomes for age group ranging from 5 years old to 18 plus. So you really have a lot of content material here that can be used. And I hope I understand correctly your comment. Melissa, would you like to complement before we go to the next question, or?
No, I think you did a very thorough job. Thank you. Let's hear from, I guess, Alessandro was next.
I think Alessandro was next.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, I think again with Peas, I think we really want to make sure that the foundations are in before you kind of start really trying to address climate change properly. So a lot of our schools are built with climate conscious infrastructure, making sure that we have solar panels, that we have a steady stream of collected rainwater and everything, because obviously a lot of our countries are affected by quite severe climate related issues. And then also making sure that you've got really strong safeguarding and child protection policies in place, especially with young girls. We find that they are obviously more heavily affected by climate change in a lot of our countries, either because they're pulled out of school earlier, or sometimes you can have some hygiene related issues with poor running water, that type of thing. So making sure that we have these policies in place that can support them at the school governance level. But I think it would definitely be worth, consulting the handbook just to see where we can actually improve in making sure that it's really properly integrated, and that at all points we're making sure that either a student, a teacher, a school leader can be properly supported, considering just how daily climate change issues affect them. And I think one part as well that we're starting to look into a little bit more, but could definitely do with some guidance, is like mental health issues related to climate change, climate anxiety, especially among our students. I mean, if you're really struggling to access school consistently due to infrastructure issues, or your family's livelihood is being affected by climate change and everything, what are we doing to make sure that those types of anxieties are being properly supported at the school level? And then finally, with the community, we're community first schools, so we really make sure that we're integrated as much as possible in the local community. We have parent teacher conferences. We also have like a board of governors, of course, made up of local community members and stuff, but understanding a bit more how we can really be hubs against climate change for the local community. We have a couple of examples already of growing food surpluses in case of food shortages, and also being kind of a protective zone in case of flooding and that type of those types of issues. But really, maybe being a bit more deliberate about how we can adopt this kind of whole school policy approach. So I'd be really interested in reading the handbook. Thanks.
That's great to hear. You will see the book, the tool, I would say. It's very global, so please do not hesitate to also consider it as a tool that can be adapted. It gives a list of type of actions that can be taken. I understand that you gave great examples about like solar panels, for example. It's not always easy to tackle this specific dimension of facilities and operations, because also some of these aspects are sometimes to be handled at the national level when we touch to infrastructures, for example, about the norms and stuff. So it's great to hear that you were able to have some actions around that already, and it's a bit of an exhaustive list, I would say, or non-exhaustive, I should say, list of activities that can be adapted. And of course, as you mentioned as well, I guess it's never enough. We also need more supporting guidance or documents. You referred to maybe warning systems or protection processes. I guess having some standard operating procedures when the climate event is happening is also helpful for schools to know how to quickly act when this happens. Here we talk about maybe future avenues for our greening education partnership.
have Shrutika.
Yes, thank you. Hi, sorry, I joined in late, so maybe the questions that I asked have already been answered. So one, I'm just curious about if there are any tools that we have, like, how do we really evaluate ourselves in where we are at this point of time? And then how do we just bring stakeholders together and have that conversation? And I'm coming here from a point of that, okay, we are starting to bring these kind of interventions in an ecosystem where these are not being driven by the policy at this point of time. So when we think of bringing stakeholders together, having conversations about it, building a shared sense of, what the challenge is, what the urgency is, and how do we want to move ahead together with this? So one, just are there any recommended tools or frameworks that we might have that can be leveraged? And the second question that I have is that are there any examples or stories that you all might have seen over the last few years where the conversation started from the ground and it actually really led to affecting policy in certain ways? So are we seeing glimpses of that, and what is enabling that wherever it might be happening? And the third is little bit like connected with the previous conversation. Just how do we look at climate change and the more like climate effects when it happens? It's like right out there in a very tangible way, and well-being. Because one thing that very directly happens is closure of the school. The sense of routine that children have, or like for teacher, that sense of anxiety. Okay, what do I do now? How do I connect with my children? So is there anything around well-being of people who deal with this, the children as well as the teachers, the decision makers, for you to decide, like based on the weather forecast, that okay, when do you announce the holiday, when do you not announce the holiday, how do you ensure everybody knows about it, everybody is physically safe, but within all of that, the emotional well-being, the psychological well-being. So these are the three lines of like curiosities that I have. And if you can just, share maybe like any tools or your insights.
Melissa, I can start. I'll try to answer some of your questions. On the first question, how to engage, how to monitor, what tools or framework. I would say we don't have like a specific tool for follow-up or monitoring, but we are working on a global monitoring platform that's it's going to be more at the global level with the partners and countries. So it will be actually visible online very soon, as it's a work in progress. So all of the information that we have mentioned now on each of the 4 pillars of actions on schools, curriculum, teacher training, and communities, you will be able to look at this online and see the progress globally under each of these pillar, and also each country member of the JEP will have a country profile page where you see also in each country the progress under each of these pillar. So when I'm talking about greening schools, for example, let's say I'm talking about France because we are based in Paris with Melissa. So you have a page for France and you can see how many green schools you have in France, for example. And by green school, we mean schools that are aligned to our green school quality standard and are implementing this transformative and holistic approach. You can also have information about the state of things in terms of integration of climate change education in the French curriculum and programs, and if it's to what extent it's done or not. You will also have information on teacher training, education, and systems capacities, and on their work around communities. And that will be the case for each country. So it's a way of somehow comparing to each other. It's an open platform, so you will also have some articles of best practices where partners will be sharing what they do. So it's not only at the national level. So I think that's a first thing. And then more practically speaking, and in the last slide, we will share the contact information and so on. I would say, please join our community of practices, join the Greening Education Partnership, because we have what we call a working group meetings 4 times a year. Partners gather, share practices. We have presentations as well. We have plenary sessions with technical presentations. We have breakout sessions on each of the topic of schools, curriculum, teachers, and so on. And here it's also a way for partners to discuss. So that's one thing. Then you asked about examples. So bear with us. That's the next part of the conversation and of our presentation. We have selected a few examples of schools on the field. So it's really like at the grassroots level of schools implementing activities under each of the dimension of the Green School Quality Standards, so around school governance, around the facilities and operations, etc., etc. So here we can give you a bit of some examples of schools who initiated the process. And how do we look at emotional well-being, psychological support? Here I would say also maybe wait a bit until the Pillar 3 guidance document will be published next week. We have some of these topics addressed in the policy tool for teachers and education systems, and I hope this will help. I feel like this question is also more related to education in emergency responses, which we try to tackle in the Greening Education Partnership, even though we are more in an anticipation type of work, like we are more at like at the development stage than responding to immediate events and tackling psychological support, for example. But this will be addressed in our next publication. Melissa, anything else?
Thank you, Marina. I think you almost covered it all. I would just complement with 1 or 2 points, which is you mentioned a question, I think, on coordination or exchanges with other stakeholders who are working in this subsector, let's say. Again, I would really encourage, if you're not already a member of your local education group, the coordination group, whether that's in the development space, it's often chaired by the Ministry of Education. In a humanitarian setting, it's usually an education cluster that's co-led by a UN agency. I personally was a member of a local education group in Kenya when I was based there, and previously the education cluster in Somalia when I was working at an NGO in Somalia, and can attest that those are really the fora for exchanging learnings and challenges with other actors, but also trying to influence the government, sharing best practices that you talked about from the grassroots up. They are effective and active at varying levels in different countries, and it really depends on the political will, the resources, the capacities of the Ministry of Education in each context. So I don't know if they are as equally useful in every country, but I think it's a good starting point at the very least. And then again, on the point on education and emergencies, or in more humanitarian context, it's true. So UNESCO is currently partnering with Save the Children through funding from the Global Partnership for Education to roll out a technical assistance program in 35 climate vulnerable countries called the Climate Smart Education System Initiative, all about this, mainstreaming climate into education systems. UNESCO handles more of the teaching and learning component, but Save the Children, being more of a humanitarian actor, they lead the component on disaster risk reduction, early warning systems, developing standard operating procedures for schools to be able to respond during emergencies. And often we see not only school closures due to climatic events, but also schools being used as a space of refuge for community members during climatic events. So education is highly impacted by drought, floods, etc. I wonder if maybe Marina and I can consult our colleagues at Save the Children to see if they have any guidelines, global tools that they can share that can be contextualized. I don't know if we're the best placed ourselves at UNESCO, but I know that that's an area that they specialize in. And they're working at the national level as well with ministries of education. I'm sure there are some sort of global resources that we could share. That's something maybe we'll take with us as homework. Thanks. Chiara, please come in.
We can also connect you, Shrutika, to Link Education, and they were presenting on this call last time, and their angle is much more on the resilience side of things. How do you ensure, exactly as you were saying, Melissa, that schools become almost like the resilience hubs particularly in emergency situations related to climate, both in terms of protecting learning and continuation of learning, but also like physically, how do you work with infrastructure as well as with standard operating procedures at the governance, at the kind of practice level, to make sure people are ready for when these events happen. So we can connect you with them as well. They've got heaps of learning to share on this angle. And I've also found online just these standards, a global school safety framework, which includes sort of standards on school resilience and protecting learning. I haven't explored this resource myself, but perhaps it's also something that we could maybe we can try to invite them to present in this community of practice to kind of complement more sort of like the greening, the more that preventative side that you were talking about, Marina and Melissa, and the kind of longer term, how do we ensure education kind of contributes to a world where learners can solve these critical challenges, they're ready for these critical challenges. It's two sides of the coin, isn't it? Like protecting immediately, like learning, and making education more resilient in the short term, and in the long term, kind of greening education, as you were speaking about. And we're very much kind of covering both in this community of practice.
Thank you so much. Should I reshare the screen now?
Okay, perfect. We see the
Okay.
the screen now. So talking about green schools, we wanted to give you also a bit of examples to make this conversation a bit more concrete. We have 4 slides. Maybe let me know if you want me to go through all of them. I can pick just like 2 of them, so we have a bit of time to also discuss. This first example comes from South Africa. So it's a primary school called Modupo Primary School. It's a school that is aligned to the Green School Quality Standard, and they have embarked into this greening journey of environmental stewardship. And what's interesting here is that during a school-led water quality testing session that they had done, the learners and educators discovered that in a close by nearby wetland along a park that's next to the school, this wetland was degraded and was polluted with neglected waste, for example, invasive species. So they decided to act and to rally around the vision of restoring the wetland and depollute it, if I can say so. So from that experience came a collective effort to clean the wetland, and it became also a raising awareness moment on the importance of climate water, clean environment, and a healthy community. So this was the starting point of their journey. And in order to make it lasting and to integrate environmental goals into the schools, they created an eco committee. So you can see on the picture the group of students, but this eco committee is not only students, it's also educators to make it as to representative as possible. And the goal and role of this eco committee is to lead in the planning of environmental activities, also to monitor the activities that the school will be doing, and of course advocate for the restoration of their the nature and the polluted lands around them, and ensure that environmental governance becomes part of the school's DNA. So we've put this example under school governance because it's really like building a team, an eco committee to then infuse and lead about environmental activities in all aspects of the school. The second example comes from Sri Lanka, and it relates to the facilities and operations dimension. Here it's it's from Colombo. It's the Food Forest Initiative. It's also a green school aligned with the Green School Quality Standard. And you can see on the picture, they use the outdoor spaces as classrooms to foster this connection with nature. So the children are exposed to scientific concepts by themselves planting and harvesting, doing harvesting activities. But beyond this type of outdoor extracurricular activities, the entire process leaves a really like a lasting impact for the students, and you can see that having this outdoor spaces in the school can connect multiple things from the dimensions we have cited. So they have the facilities, they have the outdoor spaces to create this environment and to create awareness around climate change. So using the facilities and using the outdoor spaces as classrooms to foster a connection with nature is really part of what we call greening facilities and operations. So that's an example, but we've heard from Alessandro about also solar panels, for example. So there are multiple ways of course, making your campus green. But we wanted to give also examples that are not always about putting recycling bins in the schools, which is now kind of widely done. It's good, of course. It's not we should not undermine this kind of initiative, but greening facilities and operation goes a bit beyond. So this is one example from Sri Lanka. On the teaching and learning aspects, we have an example from Lebanon. And here, so it's not, I don't know if you can see clearly on the screen, it's called the Green Demonstration Room. So it's a room that's actually hosted in one of the premises of the Ministry of Education, where students from public and private schools from across the country come and visit. So it's targeting primary and secondary students, and they go through workshops. So that's why you see on the screen a sort of pathway where they first have activities in the green demonstration room, learning about the principles of water conservation, energy efficiency, waste management, and so on. And then they go into thematic labs like physics laboratory, music workshop, arts workshop, and they tackle climate change and the environment in these workshops as well. So the reason why we wanted to give you this example is to show how climate change education and sustainable development can be tackled in different subject areas. And the approach of this green school quality standard is really to make teaching and greening teaching transdisciplinary and not only about, as we said before, science or geography. And the last example comes from Qatar with the greenhouse cafe. So here it also came with from the idea of reusing an outdoor space they had and to use it as a living classroom. So it's not only about outdoor classes and the greenhouse outdoor space, but they really try to link it with the community. So first example is they rebuilt the greenhouse and made it a shared space for learning. But the parents were also involved in the project. For example, they were invited to donate seeds to the greenhouse. And the students then took the responsibility for watering and caring for them throughout the school years. They also have an eco committee within these schools. So the eco school members worked with a local agricultural expert who came in the school and introduced the students to planting techniques, to the different soil types and local plants that are suitable for Qatar's environment. So they really included also the outside community, I would say, in their project. And the students also invited peers from other schools to come and do activities with them in this greenhouse and in this cafe, I would say, this is how they called it. So they created smaller workshops and invited other schools. So this became a project for the whole community, and it really transformed this school-led initiative in a collaboration with the community and with other stakeholders. This is an example from Qatar, and we tried to give you examples from different regions and countries to show you how this is feasible and possible in every settings, and not only in Europe or North America, as we can see sometimes that a lot of initiatives are taken in these countries. And now another moment for discussion, I guess. We just wanted to hear from you. Did you find these examples relevant? Does it resonate with you in your own experience? And please also share with us your challenges that you are facing and needs that you have seen.
Thank you so much, Marina. I think maybe what could be beneficial here is if you can share a bit about your last slide, which is how to contact you. I know in the last 5 minutes some people have to leave. I'll put down a poll as well once you've shared that slide, and then we enter into the dialogue so that if somebody has to leave, we don't miss on that critical information. Thank you.
Maybe I can jump in here. I think we've mentioned this throughout the presentation, but there's a few different ways that we think you could get involved, and please also suggest if you see any other opportunities. So there are these two kind of umbrella communities of practice. One is the ESD Net, which is looking at education as a driver for sustainable development, more broadly speaking. And then there's the Greening Education Partnership, which is looking more at climate education specifically. So both of these have newsletters and online communities of practice that you can join. We'll share with you the links later. You could expect receiving a newsletter roughly on a quarterly basis, and also being invited to webinars, learning exchanges, events, etc. So it's a great opportunity just to stay connected to a global network of actors who are working in this area, as well as exchange with governments, because in both communities of practice, member states are core members. We have a LinkedIn group on ESD, which you can also join. It's not moderated by us, so it's more just like a social media platform where you can post content and exchange information with other members. Of course, as Marina mentioned, we would really appreciate your support in rolling out the Green School quality standards in your context. And again, on our website, you can find more information on how to align your school with that standard. And in general, we encourage you to become ESD champions, so finding entry points within your local context for how you can support the ministries of education in trying to mainstream climate into various facets of teaching and learning, and to exchange some of the practices and experiences from your own schools. Next slide is our contacts, so both for the Greening Education Partnership Secretariat and for the ESD Net Secretariat, but we all sit within the same team.
And we will be sharing all of this through the key takeaway email as well, so you don't need to worry about the links part of it. Yeah.
And that's it. That's all from our side. So maybe we can open up the floor for discussion these last few minutes.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I've put on the poll as well. While we continue to discuss, your feedback would be very, very relevant and helpful. So if you can, share your feedback as we are entering into the dialogue, of which, we can continue the dialogue as well. Thank you.
I just had a quick question to Melissa. What was the name of the forums that you recommended that organizations connect with at the national level?
No problem. The generic term for it is the local education group, but they usually have a different name in each country. So I remember in Kenya, it was like the Education Partners Coordination Group. You would really have to try to find maybe an actor who works at the national level within your country to see what the name of the forum is. And they're usually chaired by the Ministry of Education. Sometimes they're co-chaired with another agency. So it could be co-chaired by the Ministry of Education and UNESCO, for example, or UNICEF, which is often the case. And that's the forum where development partners, so donors, are usually present as well. You might see the World Bank or GP representatives in those meetings, or bilateral donors. Usually you see FCDO, previously USAID, actively participating in those meetings. You'll also have usually teachers represented through some sort of teacher union, whatever is the case in that country. And then you'll have NGOs either representing themselves, or you'll have an umbrella NGO that's representing all of the NGOs. And that's where the education sector plans and strategies are developed. That's where education sector analyses are deliberated. That's really the main forum for non-state education actors to influence these processes. Then if it's in a humanitarian context, there is usually also an education cluster, and that's entirely led by the UN OCHA humanitarian coordination mechanism. But that's where non-state actors also participate and exchange, and they have to report to it as well for monitoring purposes. With just 3 minutes to go, any last reflections or questions?
Alessandro.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks to you both for that really interesting presentation. I was wondering if I could get a little bit like higher level, maybe to the start of the presentation. And I'm really interested in how you guys manage so many different stakeholders at so many different levels as well. Obviously, 100+ countries with very quickly changing political context, so geopolitical context. You obviously mentioned USAID and what happened there last year and everything. But how do you guys maintain, I guess, the consistency of implementation across these, very multi-year projects? And yeah, I guess just with a very quick changing world and everything like that, what's kind of the process of making sure that, yeah, consistency is upheld? And are there certain partners that you guys look for that are more, I guess, how do I say, reliable maybe long term? That might be a bit of a emotive word, but yeah, just how do you guys manage this really wide range of stakeholders?
You want to try to tackle that, Marina, from the perspective of JEP?
Yeah, well, to be honest, my first thought was beyond JEP, but I think also as UNESCO more broadly, because I mean, as UNESCO, we have our member states. So it makes it, I guess, easier in any initiative we have, whether it is the Greening Education Partnership or the ESDNet network that Melissa mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation. We are in constant coordination or contact with our member states for other type of activities as well, like just now is the executive board of UNESCO. So I think the fact that as an organization we have member states, it makes it also easier to reach out to them and embark them in this journey, and setting those goals and having a closer monitoring. So I think once the national level is committed, then other partners follow. I would say when you really have the ownership or buying at the national level, it of course makes it easier. Melissa, you wanted to say something?
Just one small point to add. I mentioned this ESD for 2030 framework and its roadmap. So I know this is just a UN document that probably means nothing to anybody, but it gives us the mandate and the framework, because you talked about consistency. So the member states of UNESCO committed to this framework through some UN process. And it's for a period of 10 years from 2020 to 2030, aligning with the global SDG agenda. So that kind of serves as the starting point, and that's where we already secured the political will and the buy-in, so to speak. But in terms of consistency, I mean, for sure, we can't say that all countries are equally as sold on the idea of ESD or are following through with this commitment. So for sure, there are champion countries, let's say, who are really driving and leading by example. And through these communities of practice, hopefully they're encouraging and serving as role models to other countries. But yeah, I don't think we could say that we're consistently driving the same scale of change in every country. For sure, there are certain partners who are more engaged than others.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful dialogue. I think it's a very and I'm sure Melissa, Marina, you interact with so many, but when you interact with practitioners, you get to be asked questions exactly which takes you to the classroom, right? You cannot shake away in theory. It has to come back to the classroom. So thank you for engaging with those questions, and thank you everyone for asking those questions as well. We was a very diverse group today from Pakistan, India, Sierra Leone, Zambia, so many places, Uganda, and so on and so forth. But thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining in today as well. But a special thanks to Marina and Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
everyone.
much.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Lovely to meet you all. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.